star 6. Jessica Wheeler, star 6. Jessica?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to voice my concerns about loose dogs in the neighborhood. I am in the 77087 area, and it is a regular thing. I walk my dogs, and we regularly see loose dogs. Just the past weekend, or the weekend of May 22nd and 23rd, I saw 7 loose dogs. And when you're walking with your dogs, you just never know what is going to happen. It is very stressful, but I am determined to walk my dogs because they need to have their exercise. A couple years ago, in 2019, one of the neighbors on my street was letting his 3 crazy dogs loose. This was about the time that they removed the ability to report loose dogs on the 311 app. So I called it in. They were still loose the next day, and then the next day after that, I called it in again to follow up. And then on a Saturday, they were out again, so that was when I called the non-emergency police number. The dispatcher was trying to dissuade me from reporting it, but I reminded her of the leash law. Then she did send out 2 cars. I took one of my dogs up to the park in my car, and then when I came back, I saw one of the officers, and I was talking to him. He tells me that his hands are basically tied. When I got out of my car and the dogs came up again, that was when he did respond, and he did go down to, I knew the house that the dogs were coming out of, and he went down to educate the people. That finally stopped him from doing what he was doing. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I do know we do have some ordinances on the books dealing with this. And we do have way too many dogs that are roaming the streets. We are upping our spay and neutering program, but owners too have to take assume more responsibility for their pets. Councilman Gallegos.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I want to thank the mayor and most of council for approving the $500,000 for BARC in regards to hopefully providing affordable or free spay and neutering to economically disadvantaged communities in the city. Again, when someone has to pay their rent and their light bill and their water bill and what have you, getting their dogs and cats spayed and neutered is the last thing on their list, unfortunately. But like the mayor said, is educating the pet owners and assisting BARC in regards to the providing spay and neutering. And also, we were successful in bringing Emancipet from Austin to Houston a few years ago, and they're providing low cost and free spay and neutering. Again, it's reporting it to BARC, and unfortunately with their limited resources, they don't have enough individuals out on the streets to pick up these dogs that are strayed. But we do need to educate the pet owners. And again, there is Emancipet now, the new location there off of Monroe and the Gulf Freeway, and the first location on Wayside in the East End. So we're doing our best to try to address this issue and this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, next speaker.
Greg Egan.
Greg Egan, if you'll press star 6. Greg Egan, star 6. Greg?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity. I'm here to speak about Chapter 21, Article.
Press star 6. Rachel Herrick.
Here.
Okay, we can hear you.
My name is Rachel Herrick, Inwood Forest District A resident, and I am here to share some frustrations about BARC. To start, I want to express my endless appreciation for the employees and volunteers along with all of the rescue partners. I demand City Council pass a resolution defining enforceable metrics and establishing a firm line of when an animal must be euthanized. There are currently no checks and balances without a resolution. The line cannot be gray and ever-changing. A resolution is the only way to legally bind BARC to their mission statement. The alleged 95% no-kill rate is not good enough when there are over a dozen perfectly good animals on that use list every single day, and there is nothing ensuring life-affirming options for every animal every time. I also cannot believe that an organization that has existed for so long and that has a budget of $13 million does not have standard operating procedures. This is extremely dangerous and wholly unacceptable. As an engineer, I offer my skills and experience to assist BARC in the creation of these. When will BARC fully reopen without appointments? We've just in the last day encountered 6 stray dogs. The intake appointments are weeks out. Citizens should be able to recover animals from the street and take them somewhere safe and reliable. That somewhere should be BARC. I shouldn't have to risk the safety of my family and pets bringing in a stray animal, but I do because my children are watching. My major concern is dogs on the use list due to behavior, quote. No one employed by BARC is trained or certified to make that designation. Just last week, 2 entire kennel rooms were nearly empty while I was up there doing temp testing. This temper had closed the intake for days, yet dozens of dogs were still on the euthanization list each day. Why? One behavior dog was Butters, found at White Oak Conference Center. He had been at BARC for over 2 weeks, had $1,400 in pledges, and just needed a rescue to tag him. His behavior note was absurd and not justification for being put on the use list. As the finder of Butters, I'm happy to report he is thriving in his foster home. I demand an immediate halt of the euthanization of animals that is not based on evidence-based no-kill protocols. What is the plan and timeline for hiring more staff? Has Sophia Proler been replaced? Also, free microchipping should be available at all times free of charge. The return to owner rate for Houston is lower than any other city, most other cities. Why are the animal shelter advisory committees not open to the public? Why is social media not being better utilized? There's only 100 engagements on Facebook with over 54,000 followers. And I've never received a call to action email from BARC as a registered foster. The rescues are bursting at the seams, and I have been in touch with dozens of groups and individuals this last couple of months. BARC cannot depend solely on these rescues to bail them out each time. This should be a drama-free operation, and everyone should be working toward the same ultimate goal without fear of repercussions. Transparency is key. Please do the right thing when no one is watching. It's as easy as that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the no-kill rate of 95% is much, much better from where BARC used to be. And of course the goal would be 100%. But 95% is where we are. With respect to not taking in animals, I think it was last week, for a couple of days, that was because we wanted to prevent a distemper outbreak. Because one of the dogs that we had taken in came down, was tested for distemper, and based on one of the leading experts, advised us not to take in any more dogs until they were tested in order to prevent an outbreak for all of the animals. So that's the reason why we weren't taken in for those
May I speak?
Now, listen to you. Please give me the same respect. I'm
But that's not what my issue is about.
I didn't interrupt you. And because of the potential widespread distemper outbreak, is the reason why we did not take in any for those few days. Fortunately, it was isolated, and we went back to taking in. We take in over 100 animals a day. Over 100 a day. And just like I said, in the month of May, there were more than 2,000, I believe, that went through our system. So it is quite, and we are hiring within our budgetary constraints. And as I've indicated to all of the dedicated employees over at BARC, and we have some exceptional employees who are dedicated to their mission at BARC, is that we want to work with those, our partners, those who are interested in adopting, who want to rescue. We want to work with all of our partners. And we do want to be as transparent as anyone can be. So there's no attempt not to be transparent. And there's a desire to partner and to work with individuals who want to provide safe and quality places for all of our animals. We recognize that. So this is not where people are not wanting to do, but I do want to acknowledge the dedicated and hardworking employees and professionals at BARC. Okay. Councilman Travis.
Thank you, Mayor. Caller, can you tell me your name again?
My name is Rachel Herrick.
Rachel, did you want to finish with any comments? And then I've got a few comments to make.
Sure. I just wanted to say, yes, the December outbreak was valid to close intake. That's fine. But there was still plenty of room on the euthanasia list, and they didn't have a protocol. I saw on their dry erase board when I was there that they needed to make a protocol for a December outbreak. So I'm more concerned about establishing and getting a resolution together that can make that 95% or more be legally binding. That's the main point.
Right.
And I appreciate BARC to the max.
Thank you. And Mayor, I've got to say this is, and I appreciate all you're doing. I unfortunately think you're being ill-served. I think the BARC right now is leaderless. I know some good people working on it. I know Tina Paez, Director Paez, is trying to direct the ship. I know so is Nikki Cooper. But last week with the distempers, that did bring things sort of to a head. There doesn't seem to be any real policies or procedures at BARC. Again, I can't fault the people there that are working at BARC. They are hardworking. But we've had a director there for 10 years. And yes, this is not a retail clothing store. It is BARC. But we do need real leadership there, and we need policies and procedures. There shouldn't have been a problem. Our intake is an issue because we have one central intake, and that does cause a problem for us. And so these things have to be thought of. And we shouldn't be thinking of them the moment the crisis arises, like a distemper shutdown. We need to be thinking of that, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And we've had a director who's been there for that long who hasn't thought these things through. So I'm getting frustrated because everybody else is frustrated because, again, it's not as if it's up to you or me. You've hired somebody for that position. Actually, somebody else hired him and you kept him on. That person should be sitting there thinking of these things, and they're not. So I'm a little frustrated with that. And I have to push back against this 95%. I wish it was a true number. And again, I know that's what you're being told, Mayor, just like I'm being told that same thing. But a lot of those numbers are based upon the fact that we don't take in all the animals we should be taking in, because if we did, our number would be lower. So that affects the number. There's really 31,000 animals on the streets each year to suffer and die or to actually attack our citizens. Because if we took those animals in, we'd have to find homes for them or we'd have to dispose of them. And so the euthanasia list would be much higher. But also, we send them off to Colorado and parts otherwise in the United States through RPM. A good program, but the problem with that is they don't ever give us the ultimate disposition. They say they can't, and I understand that because they're going from one shelter to another shelter. For BARC, I understand that counts as a rescue because that is no longer on our books. But it goes to a shelter up in Colorado whose books are on. And that dog or cat, and usually it's all dogs, may get rescued, a lot of times does get rescued, but not always. And so for me, I wish we had that ultimate disposition so we could really say that 95% is a hard, fast number. But again, I know it's not you, Mayor, and actually I do know Director Paez is working on this, and I do tell everybody out there in the public to give her some time this summer. We've got some good people working on it, but I don't want people to think that it's still not a problem because it's a problem.
Councilman Pat.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Rachel, for calling in today. We are working on several things in District A to help with BARC and rescue pet movement. So we will reach out to you since you live in District A and tell you about the things that we're working on in my office and also how you can help us with that in the Inwood area. So we'll reach out to you. Thanks, Rachel.
Next speaker.
The next speaker,
Tasha Cole. You press star 6. Tasha Cole. Tasha Cole, star 6. Tasha. Next speaker.
Cindy Stanley.
Cindy Stanley, star 6. Cindy Stanley, star 6. Cindy? Cindy Stanley.
Yes, hello. Yes, I'm here.
I can hear you.
Hi, good afternoon all. My name is Cindy Stanley. I've been asked by Animal Rescues to speak about my experience with BARC Animal Shelter. English is my third language, and I apologize for my bad grammars. I am here to share the story of Sammy, BARC ID A1676751. Sammy is a one-owner surrendered bulldog, 7 years old, and heartworm negative. Sammy gets along with all dogs. Upon surrenders, owner reported 1 bite in 7 years. Sammy was then placed on the kill list at BARC in February 2020. The rescue base in Oklahoma tried to save him. We called BARC and was told that Sammy is unavailable and may have already been put down. We didn't stop there. We have a volunteer at BARC to physically locate Sammy, and he was still very much available to be rescued. We contacted BARC again to rescue Sammy and was told that he's very aggressive. At that point, Oklahoma Rescue backed out from saving him. But volunteer at BARC didn't give up. She pleaded for another rescue, citing that Sammy is not aggressive. He was playful. He has no teeth. You see, Sammy barely has any teeth, and he was on the kill list for being aggressive. Another rescue in Austin stepped up and saved Sammy's life that day. Both transport and foster mom described Sammy as goofy, old boy, no aggression. Sammy loves everyone, including kids, dogs, and cats. In the case of Sammy, BARC has proven to be incompetent in the day-to-day operations and failed at a basic communication skills with the public. In the case of Sammy, BARC has shown that they are incompetent to be providing a behavioral analysis on dogs in their facility. In the case of Sammy, BARC has shown that they make it very easy for them to kill a dog, and they have made it very, very difficult for us to save a dog from them. Sammy survived BARC, but many animals do not. The definition of shelter is to protect and shield from danger. How can BARC continue to operate as an animal shelter when their incompetence are killing the animals in their facility? Changes need to be made with BARC, so please help make that happen. Thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, I think you mentioned the date was February of 2020. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
That was, all right, some 15, 16 months ago. And Sammy is still alive today. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, are you breaking up?
Right. We're talking about Sammy, an incident that took place in February of 2020. And Sammy...
Yes, but for my...
No, let me finish. And Sammy is still alive, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to comment. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy Wilson.
Tammy Wilson, star 6. Tammy Wilson, star 6. Tammy? Tammy Wilson, star 6. Next speaker.
Lucy Salazar.
Lucy Salazar, if you press star 6. Lucy? Lucy Salazar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. Hold on. I just unmuted it. Okay. This is Lucy.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sir. This is Lucy Salazar. I'm a lifelong resident of the East End neighborhood here in Houston. Born and raised, we've been living here since 1968. And I'd just like to address that. I'm sure you've heard it already, but we're having some major issues here. We have a big problem here in East End with these stray dogs, loose dogs. I got attacked on Easter Sunday at 8:54 in the morning. I just got home from work. I work overnight at Memorial Hermann Hospital, helping doing my part and helping save lives. And I got my little doggie after working 16 hours, and we were walking down Wayside to Gulf Freeway, where I always walk her for the last 6 years, and we were brutally attacked by a pit bull. It came out of nowhere, and it just grabbed my little dog by the neck and just tore her apart. And I did everything I could to save her. I was hitting the dog. I was kicking the dog. I was yelling at security guards to shoot it. He was just standing there with his hands in his pockets. He didn't help me. There were men, women, and children that came out of the bakery to watch what was happening, but nobody helped me. I was screaming and I was crying. And anyway, I don't want nobody to go through what I went through. So I'm asking that they do more to get people to keep their dogs on leashes. And these stray animals, these people said that it wasn't their dog, it was a stray dog, but yet the bakery was feeding it, giving it bread. An elderly woman, like in her 90s, walked out before, out of the bakery, and that dog was just smelling the bag of bread in her hands. I told the owner, you're lucky that dog didn't attack that lady. And luckily it didn't attack a child, because there's plenty of kids there too. And they said that dog had already killed some kittens that lived in the back of the dumpster. And so I just walked into a death trap for my little puppy, and it just breaks my heart because I helped save lives all night, but I couldn't save my little puppy. And I just don't want no one to go through the trauma that I've been through. This is my second dog this happened to. It happened to my other Chihuahua. And it's just heartbreaking, and it's an awful thing for children and people to see. And like I said, this happened on Easter Sunday. My birthday was 2 days later, and it was the worst birthday of my life. I can't get over it. I've tried to get over it. I've got another little dog now, and I feel bad because I can't love I feel like I can't love this dog the way I love my other dog. I'm traumatized, and I'm just asking that please, if y'all can enforce the law on this leashes, people putting leashes on their dogs, and about these gunshots and fireworks.
Yeah, one second, please. Councilman Gallegos.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Luis, for calling in. I know that, like you said, this is been very traumatic for you. I know you brought this to my attention a few weeks ago. I know we saw each other this past weekend, and again, sorry that you had to go through that. But again, I want to thank the mayor and council, or the majority of council, for approving that $500,000, like I had mentioned to you over the weekend. $500,000 that was going into BARC, hopefully to communities, economically disadvantaged communities, to address the problems that we're having with the stray animals, to hopefully educate the pet owners and provide them the means to get their dogs and cats spayed and neutered. Again, we need to make sure we educate the pet owners of being responsible pet owners, plus providing affordable or free spay and neutering in economically disadvantaged communities. Because again, as you know, this is nothing new. This has been going on for years in regards to stray dogs in our communities, and we need to address it. And as you know, we do have Emancipet there in the East End, and they opened a new location on Monroe and the Gulf Freeway on the southeast part of the district. So they're also working on trying to get these dogs and cats spayed and neutered. And again, we need to educate the pet owners, like you stated, to make sure that they have their dogs on leashes and make sure they do the right thing and get their pets spayed and neutered. So again, sorry for that happening to you, Lucy, and thank you for calling in.
Thanks, Councilmember Travis.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo the comments of Councilman Gallegos. Also, Lucy, I want to tell you that I'm so sorry that you went through what you went through. I also have been in a situation similar to that, and you're right, it's traumatizing to see that happen and be so helpless in that situation when you want to help. Let me ask you a question real quick. Was it a dog that was owned by somebody, or was it a stray dog?
Yes.
Was it a stray dog, or did that dog have an owner and was just not on a leash?
No, they said it was a stray dog, but they were feeding it, and that's why it was hanging around the bakery.
Yeah. And, you know, I sympathize with you. I sympathize for the stray dog. I mean, animals are going to try to survive, and you talked about it killing a kitten. I mean, that's what they will do to survive, and it's not, I don't like to see that. Unfortunately, we have a stray dog problem, because we're not, and we are trying to rectify it, and I'll give credit to the council and to the mayor. We're adding more people to this on BARC to go out and find these animals and pick them up, but for the longest time, we didn't do that. And I'm glad we're doing it. But this is what we have happen, that not only do we have issues when we leave animals on the streets with the poor animals suffering, but we also have it attack people, attack other animals, our pets. And so while this is not something that's always in the forefront of, the Houston Chronicle, it is something that's very real out there for everybody to address and to deal with. So I am sorry that you've gone through it. I know we're going to try to do better. I know the council wants to do better. I know the mayor wants to do better. And I think one of the things, and Mayor, I'll even suggest this, is I see a lot of people on weekends trying to sell puppies. I call them backstreet breeders, not official breeders. They're the backstreet breeders because people are trying to make money. And, the dogs are mutts sometimes. Sometimes they look like they're purebreds. But I do know that we probably need to work on this from the state level. But, we have not only a problem with stray animals repopulating, but we also have people who repopulate, have breeders, or they try to be breeders, who repopulate the animals, and then they don't take care of those animals. A lot of times they dump them. I used to live out in Fulshire, and we would have 3 to 4 dogs a day dumped out there. People would take them out in the country and dump them. And that's a problem, not just out there, it's a problem in our city. We're dumping them in the city. So we've got to figure out a way to make people take responsibility for their animals and themselves so that we don't have this situation keep rising. But Lucy, again, I'm sorry to hear what you've gone through, and I know we're going to try to do better.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Lucy. Next speaker.
Gloria Zentino.
Gloria Centino. If you have 6. Gloria Centino.
Good afternoon. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. This is Gloria Zenteno. Some of y'all may know me through my work with Faria Dogs, and I live in Councilmember Gallegos' district. And I also work in Councilmember Carlos Cisneros' office, and I have a great deal of respect for the work that you all do for our city. My time in a council member's office, I definitely saw firsthand what it takes to serve the constituents and understand the many needs of our city. But I'm here today to ask for consideration to raise the level of attention to our animal welfare crisis in our city. I love Houston. I was born and raised here and do my part and will continue to do my part to address the stray animal overpopulation. But we are at a point that even with all the animal welfare groups out there, we seem to be losing the battle. As you may know, Houston was again ranked number 1 in the U.S. for dog attacks on postal workers. So this is not only a health and quality of life concern, but it is a serious safety issue. We're also now approaching the 4th of July, where unfortunately celebratory gunfire and fireworks will happen, and animals will be found on the streets even more. I care about my community, I care about the city, but we need to do more. We need to strengthen our city ordinances. As Councilmember Travis mentioned, breeding ordinances, we definitely need to strengthen those. If we're able to do that, there is an army of animal welfare advocates supporting and advocating through community outreach. We need way more free spay and neuter and pet education to underserved communities. We will also be out there advocating and helping to make this happen. More spay and neuter and pet education in the end will save the city money. We are at a critical tipping point where we must provide resources to care for animals. Otherwise, this will become one of Houston's most unnecessary tragedies. Thank you for listening to me on this very overdue matter. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Gloria. And as I listen to everybody, let me just say, I would love to be in a position for the city of Houston to be in a position to go and pick up every stray animal that's out there. Would love for that to take place. I would love for us to be able to offer free spay and neutering to everybody out there, make it available free for everybody. Would love to do that. And I would love to be able to build a larger BARC facility so that we can house all of these animals and that they can have like a play area and provide the necessary keep for them. Because one thing you cannot do, you can't go and bring in all the stray animals and not provide the proper care for them. I would love to be able to do all of that. But all of that comes with a price tag. It comes with a price tag. And what we are doing, we're doing the best we can with the limited resources that we have. In addition to this, we had questions on the homeless issue. And then we had issues as it relates to public safety. All of these things come with a price tag. And what I can say, and that's why I do have to go back to the fact that since 2015, under this revenue cap, we have not been able to take advantage of over $1 billion that would have come into this city that we could have utilized in all of these areas. So I don't want anyone to think that the city is not sensitive to these issues and that we don't care. I agree with everything everybody's saying. I agree. But we are limited by the resources. But I do agree. I agree we have way too many dogs, stray dogs on our street, way too many. And quite frankly, even in the park that I go through, and I've seen stray animals in the park. And it does impact everything. Quality of life. You don't want to just see stray animals out there, you want them attended to as well. So I'm very sensitive to all of that. Councilman Malcolm.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Gloria, for coming to speak. Gloria has been just a tremendous advocate for animals in this city for years, and I know we've been meeting through my work in regulatory and neighborhood affairs. We've been meeting almost monthly, and she's bringing me experts that are really looking hard at our ordinances. So, Mayor, I was glad during budget time that you said we are in the process, and we've been told by ARA we are in the process of looking at Chapter 6. I think there are some things, you're absolutely right about resources, but there are some things that we can do, I think, in updating Chapter 6 that will help alleviate some of the situation, and certainly looking at mandatory microchipping is something that I'm very interested in, and I know Gloria is too, and also breeding ordinance, some of the level of our fees. I mean, there are things that we can do within the ordinance that I think can help. So look forward to getting the stakeholder meetings together soon, hopefully, and really tackling the updates to Chapter 6, because it's been a long time since that's been looked at.
Thank you,
Councilmember.
Thank you. Councilmember Cisneros.
Thank you, Mayor. And Gloria, I just thank you. Thank you for your dedication, and leadership and all this. I wanted to say one of the things you said that I think was really important is maybe an opportunity was that there's a huge army of animal welfare people who want to help, and I think to the extent that we can also tap into that as a resource to help communicate, educate, spread the word. Block. I don't know, but I know that that's a very, very, dedicated group that as we, come up with a campaign to, for better education, or a campaign, about spay-neuter opportunities, and I'm really very appreciative of, the comments the mayor just made, but the dollars are limited, so we have to be as resourceful and creative as we can be to make sure that we're leveraging whatever we do have, and really making it count. So thank you for your ongoing commitment to this. I appreciate that a lot, and I look forward to continue working with you.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember.
Councilmember Travis.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, since we're on Zoom, this is something I can do here. I want everybody to remember this is Chloe. She was my BARC dog. I rescued her. She was walking into the euthanasia room, and I rescued her five years ago. Best thing I ever did. And her boyfriend is a stray cat. So I just want everybody to know this is who we're fighting for, and those like her. And I don't want 5 years ago she would have been euthanized, and she's on her way there, and she'd be at the bottom of a landfill right now. And I'm so glad that didn't happen. And I think we I think that's what we're all striving for, is to make sure Chloe's live and find perfect homes. I'm not sure I'm a perfect home, but I wanted to say to Gloria, thank you for coming in. I appreciate everything that you've said. I like the idea about the spay and neuter. I think if we don't spay and neuter, we're going to have more Chloe's on our street, because that's the pipeline. If you don't shut off the pipeline, every year we're going to have Chloe's that we have to find homes for. And that gets expensive as we house them, or even if we euthanize them, it's expensive. It's actually cheaper for us to do the spay neuters. I love the education program. We obviously have to educate people, because a lot of people out there aren't educated on this with their animals, and they need to know that we need to have them spayed and neutered. And Mayor, I agree with you on limited resources. I know you may be shocked to hear me say that, but you're right. We have limited resources, and those limited resources encumber us. But again, I go back to the huge army that we talked about, and Councilman Cisneros discussed it, and obviously Gloria talked about it in her talks, that there is a huge army of activists out there willing to do what they need to do, and not just with their actual physical presence, but their monetary presence. So I've got people in my district, people that could give a couple $100,000 without even blinking, and they would do so if they knew that there was a good plan in place. And so I would actually urge us to have a good plan to address these issues that we know need to be addressed. I think we all really know what needs to be done, but I think it needs to be put down and then sold to the public. And I say sold, provided to the public. I think it will sell itself. If people know where this money is going to go, the money that we ask for them, people will donate and give in the private sector. The zoo is a prime example of how well they're doing. A lot of that money that they work with comes from the private sector. And I think we can do the same here with BARC. If we make this the standard or the model in the nation, and again, it starts with a plan. And once we have that in place, I think you're going to see the money follow. But right now, when I talk to people out there and say, would you support BARC, they say, why? Because they don't see it doing any good. They don't see it getting any better. And I know we're working on it, but I think if people saw a plan and said, this is how we plan on doing intakes from here on out. This is how we plan on doing the foster program. Here's how we want to do the volunteer program. We're going to build an additional facility so that people who are fostering dogs can come in and show their dogs off in a weekend program, much like CAPS does. I think people will say, sure, here's $1,000, or here's $100,000. It's the old, if you build it, they will come. Well, in this case, it's if you plan it, if you design it, they will come. And then we can build it. So it's not really a whole lot of money that has to be done at this point. It's just we need somebody in BARC to step up and do the plan, do the design, and let everybody know what that plan is and where they need their money and how it's going to be spent. And then I'm happy to walk around and ask for that money. And I know every other council member will do the same. And I know, Mayor, you know people who will do the same. And I think we can solve a lot of these problems as long as we have that plan in place. And when we do that, we're going to see an increase in that spay-neuter. We don't need to rely so much on public money. We'll have the private money. And we're going to have a lot less Chloe's to worry about when it comes to euthanasia. Thank you.
Thank you. Just in a closing comment, Councilmember Travis, what I would say to you, don't hold up Chloe with you anymore. Chloe is much more attractive to look at and easier for all of us. So if you'll just keep your camera on Chloe, and if you'll stay off camera, you can just talk, and we'll just assume that that's Chloe talking, and you taught her how to talk. So I just want to make that point.
I think you have a lot of supporters in that thought.
All right. Thank you, Gloria, for all that you have done and continue to do. Really appreciate you. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Next speaker.
Cindy Casablanca.
Cindy Casablanca. If you press